of all, thanks for coming. I think just to help people get context as to, I've introduced you from Oricon, Chief Marketing Officer. Can you give us a little bit of background, for those who aren't aware, who is Oricon, and perhaps a little bit of historic overview, if you will?
Sure. So Oricon was created 4 years ago through a merger of 3 heritage engineering consulting businesses. One that you may be familiar with, Connell Wagner, had brand in the Australian market for 80 years, and Connell Wagner merged with 2 large South African engineering companies. So we're now 7,500 people, footprint across 20 countries, a strategy around the emerging regions, but very strong markets in ANZ and South Africa in particular. So I joined Oricon 6 weeks after the merger.
Wow.
So when I started the interview process, it was Connell Wagner, arrived, and it was really exciting to start.
Did they tell you it was going to change?
No, they didn't. It was interesting in the interview process when we got to the stage they were talking about the merger, and I said, so who's been advising you on your rebranding and your brand strategy? And they said, oh, we've been doing it with some external advisors. And so the marketer in me was just like, goodness, doing that without a marketing manager. But they did a great job. The Oricon brand itself, the foundations were excellent, but starting day one, really we had a logo and a visual identity manual, so lots of work to do.
I know that one of the topics I'm really interested to talk about, there's a lot of literature at the moment about who owns the employer brand. Is it HR-led? Is it marketing-led? We did some research last year that said 32% of brands are owned jointly with talent acquisition and marketing. What's your viewpoint on that?
So we jointly own it. I'm less fussed about who owns it. It really shouldn't be about control. It should be about bringing the skills within the organisation that are best placed to help the company do the job. So when I joined, the HR director was very clear from day one, recognised we needed to build an employer brand, develop our employer value proposition. So we co-developed that, and we jointly execute. More recently, we've hired an employer brand manager. Shannon Gillespie's in the room today. She sits in my team, but she, budgetary-wise, but she sits with the HR team.
Physically, you mean?
Physically. She sits alongside the recruitment team. So, I think the skills that a marketing and communications function bring to the table, good at integrated marketing and comms campaigns, managing the touch points that help you build brands, HR, talent acquisition, outstanding at understanding what's the employer value proposition, what does it need to be to win talent in the markets. And so that combination really working effectively together is, I think, what makes the difference.
If you think of it like that, how do you then see the 2 divisions, if you will, working and collaborating together to actually create value for the business, if that's at the heart of what a business is about?
Well, I can tell you what we've done, and I think it will differ in different organisations, but what we've endeavoured to do is to think about, we're both going to market. So marketing and communications is going to market to build positioning, reputation, to win with our customers. And HR and talent acquisition are doing the same with employees. So when you look a year ahead, we've both got schedules of campaigns and engagement. Look at the opportunities to line them up, and more particularly see where the sum of those parts creates an even better outcome for the business. So, if I could give you an example, Tim, we at the moment are looking to position Oricon more effectively in the supply chain space. So we've got a campaign working with the business to position to grow that. The talent team have goals around hiring supply chain personnel. And if we're successful in positioning and winning business, they'll need to hire more. So by identifying that shared goal early, you can really be smarter about your internal and external marketing and communications campaign.
Yeah, well, so when you start to think of outcomes or actionable items from that type of integration, how would it be a platform like LinkedIn, or from a talent solutions perspective, how would you bring that to life?
So LinkedIn's a really good example. So, we think about our followers on LinkedIn as a business asset. Okay, so they're not just people who are following Oricon because they're potentially interested in joining us. It does include that, which is fantastic. That's a key goal. But, it also includes our people. More than half of our workforce is active on LinkedIn, and we're attending to that. This time next year, I would hope that I could tell you it'll be 100%. It includes our customers and our clients. It includes competitors, and a competitor might be a joint venture partner. So they're really important stakeholders too. They're brand influencers and advocates. So the way you think about platforms like LinkedIn, I think if you think strategically around building your employer brand, is to understand whilst it's many marketplaces, it's also potentially one marketplace. So a candidate today may be a customer tomorrow, an employee today will be an alumni tomorrow, may go on and join a client. So you may well need to segment messaging and communications and engagement, but fundamentally recognise that it doesn't happen in a silo. And when you align it, it can have a really positive impact on your corporate brand and your employer brand.
I think that there's a lot of organisations, certainly in my experience in industry, where HR is quite isolated from marketing. One of the challenges I hear a lot is like, marketing have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah.
Don't take offence here, it's not me talking,
Yeah.
it's the people. But how would you give any advice as to someone who isn't working in isolation, who hears the value that you're talking about? What would be some steps to actually take that forward?
Sure, and I'm delighted to be working in a great partnership with HR at my company, and it really is seamless, and we're a good team. I've worked in organisations where it's not necessarily that, and we all know that, but I think what you've got to look for is the win-win then. So if I'm talking to an HR audience, so I'll take it from your perspective, but if I was talking to a marketing audience, maybe this would also help some of the thinking. So firstly, marketing and comms people want brand ambassadors. They want to tell the story about their organisations through their people. Who better to help them than HR and talent acquisition? Identify those people. And that storytelling, those brand ambassadors also, not coincidentally, fundamentally, build your employer brand as well. So that's an area of common interest and purpose. The other area, and I think it's interesting what LinkedIn are doing with your product, and Harry spoke about talent, market and sales. I think that's the way to also think about employer brand. There's a common purpose around customer satisfaction, and frankly for a business, that whole people-client equation that can be a really positive one, why we want to get the best talent. I mean, why do we want to get the best talent? It's because we want to do a better job than our competitors in serving our customers. So again, another really important area to come together, because HR understands and can map the employee life cycle, and marketing and comms and sales need to think about how to integrate with those touch points so that we get better outcomes, not just for hiring the best talent, but for our clients. Yeah. And there's lots of projects you can work on together to really make that work.
I think that you've been on a journey. So 4 years you've been with Oricon, and I know we've had an association for a couple of years as well. But I think it's always good to get takeaways in these kind of environments. Like, what kind of steps did you take to sort of effectively create that collaboration and build on from perhaps a small project like you suggested there?
Sure. So we started with the employee value proposition. We did some brainstorming to take some creative thinking.
Did you do some of Todd's work?
We did. That can sometimes be more challenging with civil engineers, but we did our best. We worked with our staff, so we ran focus groups across the organisation to understand from people who were either long-standing and highly effective talent, or people that recently joined our company, to understand what the drivers were. So we facilitated that with, in fact, our organisational development team and the recruitment team with marketing and comms. Having done that, we also looked at all the data. I mean, there's lots of excellent data out there that helps you understand what is going to be the most attractive employee value proposition for you in the markets. We can come back to what you do when there's a gap between the experience you're offering and what actually it takes to win. That's another strategic issue to address.
That's another session.
That's another session. But having done that, we co-developed that, and then we mapped out our plan. and we jointly executed it.
And that plan, I know I was privy to a couple of the workshops, but what impressed me was actually the collaboration in those workshops. So marketing, HR coming together and actually spending that day, and I think you did a couple of those sessions.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. That's the good stuff. And I think that, the other thing that might be worth sharing, I don't know whether you wanted to have a look at the slide around thinking about the touch points, but, marketing and comms people think about the client experience through that journey. And this, I think, I'm sorry, it's terribly detailed, but, and perhaps on the outer layers, hard to read, but at the heart of it is just thinking about the internal and external communication touch points on that journey, and identifying what were the areas that you would need to start to align around consistency of message and experience that reinforced the Live Your Ideas value proposition, which was what ours is. We didn't address all of those at the same time because we were a new brand. Our focus in the early years was really around awareness.
Yeah.
We needed to shift our brand awareness in the talent space, dropped from prompted awareness of 90% down to 40% in the first year of the merger, not surprising. Same experience in the customer space. So we did a lot of work in awareness raising around consideration.
Both in a consumer and from a employment communication side?
It was the same challenge. It was also a challenge internally. We talk about our people and staff being brand ambassadors. Our people needed to be able to say who was Aurecon, why Aurecon. They were leaving behind heritage brands that they had a lot of pride in, and we wanted to build and associate pride in our new brand. So that was also something that HR was really closely involved in. So, and some of those touch points we're only just getting to now, but I think that the critical piece for us is a lot of the activity that we've done in a marketing and comms sense to demonstrate why Aurecon to the customer space can be really repurposed for the internal audience and the external people audience. And that's what we've done. And, the Talent Brand Index suggests that the engagement that we have on LinkedIn is actually significantly better than our competitors. So we think that alignment is paying off for us.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to hear the Talent Brand Index is a key measure of that kind of the way you're influencing the talent brand. Internally, when you think about measuring success, are there other areas that when you sat down and considered the activity that you're going to undertake, is there anything you could share with us as to what does success look like as to where you are today on that journey?
Sure. So look, we've got qualitative and quantitative. Let's start with the qualitative, which is our recruitment team experiencing a significant improvement in the quality of applicant that we can engage. And I was interested in thinking about Amy a little earlier in terms of building an internal recruitment function, because that's what we have and had before I joined the company. And I was wondering whether that actually makes it our recruiters more effective at selling the employer brand experience than perhaps an agency. I just posed that thought to think through, because that could be another benefit to having an in-house function. But quality of candidates has improved. The quantitative metrics are that our brand awareness is back up near the 90s highs of 4 years ago. We're in the 80s in terms of prompted awareness.
Should just say you do also an external audit of that, don't you, to
we
get
do,
that data?
We do external benchmarking as well as our own internal benchmarking. And the other thing that was really pleasing in terms of what we did with the brand, though, is it wasn't just about awareness, it was about attractiveness. And so consideration, so of those that are aware of you, who would consider working for you, has actually gone up from 4 years ago. It's at over 40%, whereas in the heritage business, at least in the Australian market, it was at 30%. So that's a really good outcome, and I'm proud that we've been able to bring meaning to the brand and make it attractive to talent and also customers.
Yeah, and I think from just an observer of watching that journey, things that I've found are impressive. You've been ranked within the LinkedIn world of having one of the best company pages, as well as being acknowledged for your careers page. Is that what happened?
Look, it's interesting. Tim was asking earlier about engaging senior stakeholders, and we just didn't. We just did it. HR and marketing and comms just said, this just makes sense. we know it'll work. We didn't spend a lot of time designing the Taj Mahal solution. We just dived in and learned as we went, learned from what we did. Then it's easier to go back to leadership and ask for more investment because you can demonstrate the results. And the LinkedIn win was excellent. That really helped us get the funding for the employer brand manager. But yeah, no, it was great. We've got 22,000 followers, which is for a smaller, company's not bad.
Yeah, and the last comment on there, I found just through our discussions, you mentioned that tipping point, that with that engagement and that consideration, you're seeing just the growth you're seeing is...
Yeah, 500 a week. So, and that's without, we're not doing, probably like a lot of businesses in Australia, we're not doing as much recruitment this first quarter of 2013 as we were, the first quarter of 2012. But, it does build a tipping point, and, the fact that all of our staff are using it as well to engage with customers, it just creates momentum. I don't know what the number will be eventually. I'd like to have more followers than any other engineering company in the world. So yeah, that's what we'll go for.
Good goal. What I wanted to just quickly share, what you'll see in actually your bags there is a document that we've done an incredible amount of work on globally across LinkedIn. It's our employer brand playbook, and actually it outlines 5 key steps actually starting to help you understand how do you craft and build not only your employer brand, but start to leverage that to influence your talent brand. And really, this is a best practice of what we're seeing, both from stories that you've heard now from Danielle, but other global experts who actually contributed what they've done as organisations. And so for those who are at the start of that journey, or for those who even feel like they've got a well-defined proposition, how are you starting to actively invest in that? How are you actually starting to think about who do you want to influence, and how do you start to take your message to that passive candidate so they can start to, build a better understanding of your organisation to ultimately join your company. And this document is something really powerful to help you do that. So will you please round of applause for Danielle for a fantastic sharing, and thanks for your time.